Hey, everybody, welcome to March's Tribe Talk with the Professor. We are going to talk about the outline in regards to everything. So sessions are recorded and there's a pin at the top of the Facebook group for you to be able to go access the playlist of all of these. They are hosted on YouTube. And so we're going to talk about stuff for a handful of minutes, and then we always leave it open for Q&A. And this is really just elaborating on what we were talking about last time. So everybody has heard us talk about student positioning. We talk about it in our How to Pay for College Without Going Broke class, but it's really understanding in the context of how we can match those good fit schools academically, socially, and financially. So last month we were talking about this from let's figure out our interests and strengths and then figure out what kind of majors that means. And then we take all of this information and then we lead that into creating our college search and then talking about the different career pathways that can lead to, right? So remember, we're using this different approach that to really funnel through this process that we have found in the 10 to 15 years that we've been in the industry to be most effective in regards to all of this. So what we talk about in doing a college search, to elaborate on it, are what we call the 3 pillars in terms of making it that good fit. So academic, thinking of the majors, the internships, what kind of support we're going to have from the professors. Social, so where's it located, size, sports, diversity, level of inclusiveness. Financial, being that affordability, how much we can actually budget, and then opportunities at that school in order to get discounts. Right, this is not all inclusive. There are tons of other things that we can throw in. So I did just put some other preferences that people may have, but I think that it's a great opportunity of starting to think about what kind of school is that match. Like, I went to visit University of Texas Austin last week. I was there for a conference and I walked on campus and I was like, oh, this is a little overwhelming.
It's big.
It's so big. And not even like, as we're wandering through campus, I'm like, I'm already lost. Like, I have no idea where I am from building to building. And I had that realization that I've actually been going to see a lot of the small to mid-sized schools, and it just felt so comfortable. I didn't even think about like that experience of being on that big of a campus.
Right.
But
and you knew you had that gut feeling in like 10 or 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's super interesting when families go to visit, in 10 to 15 minutes, you don't need to spend a whole day. So yeah, that's always very fascinating.
It is my favorite thing about being like, why we say going to step foot on campus is super valuable, but we can take advantage. I can tell you today that I have, with all of the students I've met with, they didn't take their action steps of doing virtual sessions and getting engaged with these schools. And so we literally were going through and scheduling sessions for them. I was like, so let's pull up your calendar and we're just going to start doing this. And it's like, hey, you can do this as best you can to get that feel and vibe from the campus. But with a lot of these aspects that we're talking about today, but nothing really spurs it like stepping foot on there.
We did our best through the pandemic when there were no college visits, but that's changing. We're getting back to normal, quote unquote. And so, yeah, if you can do it, we always talk too about, it doesn't always have to be the colleges that you're particularly interested in. If there's a big campus in your backyard, go do that visit. Practice. If there's a little campus, private school, mid-size, whatever, in your backyard, go do their tour, practice being a consumer of higher ed. Then when you do get the opportunity to go to the school that you really want, you're more educated consumer. And
you're comfortable.
I did a follow-up today with a student who is, coming into second half of junior year. So starting to narrow that list down. And And what struck me is majors. We say majors. Sometimes students hear that, oh my gosh, I have to decide the one, my one major. Please don't hear us say that, because we are not saying that. It could even be, if you're STEM or not. It could be as good as that to get started.
Yep. And that does, like, if you haven't listened to the recording from last month, that is a great foundation, because that's where we start that process. And that is a very important point, that we're looking at what are the opportunities, and all of these are opportunities, right? We're looking at what we think we value, but then we're having those conversations and putting this stuff in context, right? So I want to make sure that everybody knows the resources that you have available within your tribe membership, because when you are in here, there is a lot within the careers aspect. So we have the on-demand career search. There is a link in terms of virtual job shadows, and there is a career quiz. And there is some tools for searching for schools. So this takes you to my favorite site, Niche, which has a lot of great information, super user friendly. And then this is a tracking tool. So it's an Excel doc that we have our students use, and really starting to think about these things in that big picture and putting stuff into perspective. So what kind of, yes, you're putting in the school, you're putting in those ideas for majors. But then I always tell kids, you're judging it, right? What do you like? What stands out to you? What doesn't? And now rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. So we can start to gain some perspective. What are your concerns? And what are those reasons why, whether they're positive or negative? Because that starts to show us what kind of schools we really are vibing with, as they like to say, and which ones we aren't. And so this really does help support us getting that college search started. And this is that screenshot in regards to Niche. Like I said, you can plug in your major, you can put in some big picture stuff. When you click in within a school, it gives you a lot of great information. You can see student reviews and all of that, right? And so part of this is, obviously, if you're going to be working with us one-on-one, or you're in the concierge program, we're going to be walking you through this. We're going to be creating that college list for you to be able to make sure that you know what you need to be looking at, and so that it's piecemealed out. And if you're doing this more for yourself, or you want to preliminarily get started with things because you're a sophomore or younger, right, then use the resources that we have in there. It's the same stuff that we're going to be looking at using, but within more detailed guidance when we actually get to that process as we're entering junior year.
Right. Because in concierge, what'll happen, right? A student goes, well, I really like this school, except this. And we can go, oh, well, then look at this school, because it's all of that and not that. So that's where we can really dive in, and why Tribe's great, because you get to practice and you get to see and make some of those discernments early on.
Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of exploring some careers and pathways, we always say these are the opportunities that you can keep in mind. So we start with the job shadow, volunteer, internship opportunities. We get access within our concierge program. We also use an additional program that's more intended as juniors and seniors to be able to take advantage of internship opportunities. But also thinking backwards, if you are interested in Baylor, then reach out to the college that you're interested in and the Department of Business or whatever, so that you can say, hey, these professors are working on this thing, or these professors are doing research, because I'm a STEM oriented kid. And that's really cool that they're using the fish and how they swim to be able to create cars, right? Or better improve the environment, whatever, right? There's some cool, quirky stuff going on at these schools. They're the foundation for a lot of what's going on. And by the way, sometimes your parents have friends, or your friends' parents are in industries that you may be interested in. use your network. Who do you know to be able to do that job shadow, to do a summer internship, right? Or just get exposure to have a Q&A conversation. And then we provide those guides to start having those very concrete conversations, so you know what it is that you should be trying to get out of this. And these are the links and just kind of a review in terms of some of those tools that I showed you earlier within your tribe membership. So the jobshadow.com, I know Corey recommends this to every student that she talks to, because it is just another way where, yet again, people are excited to talk about what they do for a living. And most kids are afraid to engage in that conversation. Trust me, people are excited to tell you about their day to day.
Oh, and to help a young person, I mean, that brings so much joy. We're on spring break right now, and you know my daughter, but she's very STEM. And so we're gonna have lunch with, her favorite teacher from elementary school, and then an engineer that we're close with. She's been close with him forever, but she's never thought of him as a professional engineer. So, we're just circling back after all this time. And his text reply was, "I'm so excited. I love to have nerdy engineer conversations."
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's so true.
Yeah.
Yep. And of course, this is the foundation that most people are used to, right? Is Naviance or some other high school program that your student is going to have access to, right? So you can use that as a resource as well. This is kind of like my highlight of goals that I always want for people to think about in this is, you don't just go give a student some resources and expect them to do it, right? I'd say 1% of them are motivated enough to do it on their own without guidance. So thinking of whether they're going to have conversation with you, whether that's the reason why you're hiring us because they don't listen to you, right? Or who that is going to be for them because they need to have that support. And so we're taking all of these pieces to be able to give that guidance and talk about, well, what are these pathways, right? And what is that going to lead to next? What can you use to utilize these resources in order to make sure that you understand this process? And as Corey says, be an educated consumer, right? What is that opportunity you're going to get from the college? Because we want it, we want you to have that opportunity to explore, and if there is a pathway that you uncover along the way, right? That's why I said this last time at our last session. It's my favorite thing in working with kids when they're like, well, I don't know what I'm interested in. And then we start having these conversations and I'm like, but I'm hearing this and I'm hearing this. Let's look at Columbia and Chicago. And I'm going to show you these programs. And then they go, oh,
right. They don't know what they don't know.
Exactly.
And college, we're going to college to get a degree, but we're also going to college to build a resume. So when you say these other opportunities, what are those? Is it marching band for, our music student? Is it being able to be in the lab as a freshman? Some schools will allow that. They won't let freshmen touch anything because they're wide-eyed, but they can be there. And then as sophomores, do they get to touch things? If they're scientists, how many cadavers are they? There's just, Oregon State, I'm in Oregon for spring break. They build and have a program built around a Formula One car. That's cool. There's a nuclear reactor at some schools. Isn't it Utah who actually built a mock stock exchange, and their finance degree is built all around this stock exchange and trading. And so, yeah, it's fun. We go back to school.
I know. Those are the fun things, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean?
This work thing is
portfolio of 100,000 plus. I saw one that had I want to say close to a lot, like their foundation for their business program. It was it was high six figures, that like $500,000 that students got to play with for their investment club.
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, okay.
Right, and just the lessons to learn when you like go out into the world, even your own personal investments. Yeah. So there's a lot more going on at these schools than just living in the dorms, going to class, studying in the library. And we can't quantify that, but that's the stuff that really makes a college experience phenomenal. And if students will just take advantage of those opportunities, it we can't even imagine what those results are.
Mhm.
So
And I
yeah.
will say one of my other favorites that I recently discovered because I went on a campus tour is Seattle Pacific University is in my backyard, where they do a mentorship program. So they are in Seattle, and their business school partners with the entire university to match students with a professional in their industry in the
Mhm.
Seattle area, so they can take advantage of these things while in college and exploring their interests. The
Yeah.
tour guide that we had, she was like, this is the reason why I came here. This is the reason why all of my
And to
friends.
meet people and to start to build their network. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
small school that
Mhm.
just seems unassuming, but that creation and that opportunity and the support that you get, you might have that at University of Texas at Austin. You may have that at UW, but you're going to work your tail off for it. It's not
Yeah,
going to
this
be given
many
to you.
students is going to have access to
Yeah, you're not going to have that opportunity like you
all
do
of that.
at that kind of
Mhm.
school.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a student who got to do study abroad, but it was actually on a boat through the Mediterranean.
Chapman has that.
Who?
Chapman has a program like that.
I want to say she was at University of San Diego in California. So yeah, these programs, this is not unique that, oh, only this school has it and only this school has it. There's a lot of cool stuff out there at every college. So it's just what, like you said, what gets that kid to go like this and go, oh, wow, that's awesome.
Mhm.
That's
And
the fun part.
that's what we call student positioning.
Yeah.
And part of this, right, we're marrying all of these pieces together. Before we were talking about financial and how that marries in with student positioning, and you will always hear us talk about it from that context. Even if a family can or is willing to pay the full cost for college, you're still going to hear us say, but wouldn't it be nice to get a discount and these are the kinds of schools that we can, right? And I know that we're going to kind of wrap up a little bit early today. We haven't had any questions come through. So I just want to make sure that you understand what's coming up next is the April session where we're going to be talking about standardized testing. So yes, it will be SAT, ACT. It will also be AP. It will be IB. It will be looking at that big picture of standardized testing because we get a lot of questions surrounding that. So we're definitely going to hit all of the points that we can. And I encourage you to submit questions to us in advance of these sessions. So you're going to see when you're under your tribe membership for the live college planning Q&A, there is a submit Q&A button. It takes you to a Google form so that then if there are things that you want to make sure that we cover, right, definitely tell us so that we can come to the table with that. And if you haven't joined our Facebook group yet, make sure that you have so that you're getting the updates in regards to the events that we're doing every month and what those topics are. So, Corey, any closing thoughts that you have for today?
No, this was good because we got to tell more stories than usual.
I like
a lot of stories.
We do tell a lot of stories. Okay, well then we look forward to seeing everybody next month and feel free to hit us up if you have questions in the meantime.